Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on Nasdaq. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining us this Tuesday afternoon, we have Shawn, Cruz, manager of trader services at TD Ameritrade, to discuss Nasdaq-100 performance, trends in the Nasdaq Volatility Index, or what we call Vol-Q. We're also going to preview Cisco and Nvidia earnings. Shawn, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. Let's take a look at a couple of your charts here with some trends in the Nasdaq-100 and anything that you're seeing in Vol-Q.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the Nasdaq-100. I'm keeping an eye on that shorter dated 9-day simple moving average. It's just when you're in strong trending markets, it can maybe be a little bit more responsive if things are starting to consolidate or even maybe roll over and turn around a little bit. And right now it looks like there's just some consolidation that is going to be going on here, which if you look at the chart, we really took off from 15,000 and pretty much at a steady march higher. So I think consolidation here above 1,600 and 16,000 and below 16,500, I think in this range would be a good area to consolidate. Looking at the relative strength indicator, not quite overbought, but it is hovering just below those overbought levels. I would look next at the Vol-Q, or that measure of uncertainty or expectation for volatility that's forward looking, and that's actually been coming down in the past couple of sessions. And I think that actually is a good sign, because what that is pointing to is that there's a smaller potential range or level of volatility here in the near term that's being priced in. We're still elevated from those low levels we were seeing in October and the start of November, but I do think right now this is saying that there's not much concern out there going on right now, just looking at that forward-looking estimate of volatility.
Right. And Shawn, we have some key earnings coming up as well. Let's first start with Cisco. What are you looking for there?
So Cisco, this is one that a lot of people are interested in. It's one of those big enterprise IT staples that's out there. It's going to be interesting to see how from the hardware piece, how they're going to be able to meet demands given some of the issues that they are having with some of the supply chain, and also what sort of enterprise IT spending they are going to be able to capture with a lot of these businesses going out there and investing in upgrading their digital capabilities. They're looking at revenue growth about 7.5% to 9.5%, which would middle of that range is just under 13 billion, which is more or less in consensus for what Wall Street's looking for. From a non-GAAP EPS, they're looking at about 79 to 81 cents a share. So it's going to be interesting to look at that. The other thing to look at is margins, talking about supply chain constraints. Gross margins for the quarter are expected to drop very slightly from last time we heard from them, but hover around 63 to 65%. So those are probably going to be the three really key areas to focus on coming out of this report for Cisco.
Right, Shawn, equally important, Nvidia. I mean, that's been such a big tradable name, not only in general, but certainly within the TD Ameritrade community, according to the IMX readings that we get each month. It plays so many different roles in the tech space.
It does, and they're really, when you need, that's viewed as when you need some very high quality, strong computing capabilities. Usually, you're going to have an Nvidia chip. They've had a lot going on with some of the merger attempts that they're looking at, especially with ARM, that's come under some regulatory scrutiny. But there's also just been such a strong move higher out of Nvidia, along with a lot of the chip makers. If you look at the Philly Semiconductor Index, is almost charged higher right along with the overall Nasdaq-100. It too is consolidating up here. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the market really has priced in and what they're going to focus on. But I think once again, there's going to be a lot of focus given on not only what they guide moving forward, but they're going to start looking at, all right, you've got very solid demand. How does this stack up against supply constraints and what's going on with some of these big merger deals that you're attempting to get through as well. So this is probably one where you're going to want to pay attention to the management call after earnings. I think that's going to be incredibly important to see if maybe Nvidia can charge a little bit higher, or if maybe you see investors and analysts out there maybe start taking some profits here after a pretty strong run.
All right, Shawn, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.